she's a princess, but no, she's not from space or anything. We never go to space. There is no space in this anime except for in the intro.
A little disappointment there too, but I can't fault the opening for having a misleading image because there's always the flying horses night fight in Utena's opening that, so can't really blame them for that, I guess. きっと約束だよいつかまた同じ笑顔で Everybody, welcome back to Annie Chatbox. You're tuning in to episode 40. If you can't tell already, I'm Cammie and I'm your host today. And if you want to find us on the social links, you can find us at twitter.com/theanniechatbox. You can email us at anniechatmail@gmail.com. For listening to us, you have plenty of options, whether it be iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, TuneIn, or SoundCloud. And if you would like to donate with us, if you find it within your heart of hearts to be so kind, you could check out our Patreon at patreon.com/anniechatbox. And of course, it's not just me here today. I am joined by two handsome, handsome gentlemen. I was going to say lovely, but I think I'm trying to broaden my adjectives here. And they are certainly handsome. And the first gentleman is Jonathan Joestar. Would you say hi?
Hello. I just want to say I love how we're all taken to saying Heart of Hearts when it comes to the Patreon.
You started that, didn't you? I think you started that.
I can't remember who started it now.
Every time I hear it, I think Kingdom Hearts, and I'm like, Kingdom Hearts, where is my heart?
Oh my gosh, that's deep, man. Mm-hmm. And that one that you just heard make the Kingdom Hearts reference is, of course, Craig. Say hey, buddy.
Hey, what's going on, Internet? How's it going?
That's his staple greeting as well. We're coming up with just host and recording staples. It's great. We'll see what else becomes part of our regular lineup.
Right on.
All right. So our main topic today is thrown together by me, and I just wanted us to have a talk about live-action anime adaptations. Since the recent news of J.J. Abrams' plans to direct a future live-action adaptation of Makoto Shinkai's Your Name, not to mention the releases of live-action American versions of Death Note and Ghost in the Shell earlier this year, I thought we could talk about the value of this small market. For example, when is a live-action American adaptation valuable? What can make them effective or fail? The quickest way that we could probably jump in is for each of us to mention live-action anime adaptations or the likes that we have seen. So I guess I can start us off and say that I've only seen the live-action adaptation of Ghost in the Shell with Scarlett Johansson. Mm-hmm. I saw Netflix's Death Note adaptation. Mm-hmm. I've also seen Japan's live-action Death Note adaptations, all 3 films.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, that's actually it for me. What about you, Craig?
Well, I hit you up on the side yesterday night saying what I've seen. I've seen the infamous Dragon Ball Evolution. I saw, take it as you will, the Netflix Death Note. I've seen... Oh, no, I'm spacing. I've seen the ScarJo's version of Ghost in the Shell, and while not anime, it is cartoon inspired. Avatar, or M. Night Shyamalan's The Last Airbender. Also seen a adaptation of some video game stuff, most notably Mortal Kombat, good movie. Mortal Kombat 2, not a good movie. And the Doom with Carl Urban and Dwayne The Rock Johnson. Very divisive movie. Mostly blah, but I thought it was pretty dumb fun, but that's just me.
That's a lot. That's like 6 or 7 films.
Yeah. I prefaced to you on the side, I was like, sure, I can come in and talk about this, but albeit my opinion of movies is kind of skewed because I watched everything, so.
I think that's pretty great to have. Oh, I think you also mentioned seeing the live-action Speed Racer?
Oh, yes, I did. The Wachowskis, right after they did the Matrix trilogy, I saw them take a crack at Speed Racer. That is actually a fun movie, and from what I understand, a pretty faithful adaptation. Never saw the original cartoon. I believe Speed Racer was Japanese, if I recall, but
I believe so, and I want to say it's one of those ones that just got pushed over and like Americanized. I'm going to investigate this. In the meantime, John, you can also tell us about your like what you've explored in the live action adaptation pool.
I have to admit I've fallen short in this category because as much as I've been meaning to watch Ghost in the Shell, I never got around to it. But I have seen the Japanese Death Note movies. At least definitely the first one. I actually can't remember if I watched any beyond that. But that was more because I couldn't find it, if that was the case. I have also seen The Last Airbender from M. Night Shyamalan. And then going older, or into video games rather, I've seen Dead or Alive.
Oh, okay.
Oh, I forgot about that one. Yep. I heard that one's also dumb fun.
Silent Hill, if that counts.
Oh, yes, I
Why
forgot
not?
about that one, too. First Silent Hill movie was actually pretty good. Second one, less so.
I haven't seen the second one. Also seen the Resident Evil movies.
I've seen
if they also
all of
count.
those.
Oh my god! Wow.
Fun fact, the same director, Paul W.S. Anderson, I believe his name was, directed that series along with the Dead or Alive movie.
And also I've seen the Mortal Kombat movies and Street Fighter, the movie.
Oh, God. Of course!
Somebody quick, change the channel! We see the
Oh my
bomb
God.
on the TV.
I have never seen, obviously, I haven't seen any of those, but I feel like we should all one night do, again, what I think would be a really fun feature for us would be just a drunken watch party. And I feel like we should watch either Mortal Kombat or that other one you just mentioned.
Street
Because
Fighter.
apparently they're lots of fun.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I loved the Street Fighter movie, not because it's a faithful adaptation, just because it's bloody hilarious to watch as a bad movie.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
And in that meantime, actually, I did look it up, and Speed Racer was initially, yes, an anime series called Mach Go Go Go.
Oh, nice.
And then it obviously got localized into being Speed Racer and brought its way over to the West in like 1987. So cool beans. It definitely counts. And I definitely
Great.
think it's fine for us to address video game adaptations as well in some of our like general topics because I guess the first question I wanted to think about is when a live action American anime adaptation is good or like effective or useful.
Okay.
Yeah, if we could think of any, obviously. I guess the first one I guess the first thing I could think of is if an live action adaptation works as introducing an interest in the original anime source to an audience that's not familiar with it.
Right.
So I guess like my dad and I went to go see Ghost in the Shell and neither of us had seen it. Of course, I'm super into anime, so I'd at least heard of it, but I'd never watched it. My dad like lightly dabbles in anime stuff, mostly when I just ask him to. But he also wanted to see the film, and from someone, of course, who has not seen the original source, we actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
I could tell there was a lot to be like developed in the story department, and there were a lot of just like leaps in logic and things like that. But I thought it was fun. Like, the world looked really, really cool. The drama was cool. The music was cool. The story was intriguing. And, I mean,
Yeah.
damn, I've been an anime fan for, like, you know, more than half of my life probably at this point. And I've never really been more interested in checking out the original Ghost in the Shell than when I walked out of the ScarJo version.
Yeah,
in
for
theaters. Yeah, I don't know if what you thought about the Ghost in the Shell film, Craig, or if you had kind of a similar situation.
So the only exposure to the Ghost in the Shell IP, the major Makoto Kusanagi, was light dabbling into the Standalone Complex anime series that was on Adult Swim. So with that, I knew that the structure was kind of like they have the crack team, the investigation team, where they're all like cyborgs and they're supposed to stop high-value targets and threats. The infamous story, The Laughing Man. But supposedly the ScarJo version was like their take at the very first Ghost in the Shell movie way back when. And I never saw that adaptation. I really need to. But much like you, when I went into this, I tempered my expectations because I knew that this was going to get flack for a multitude of reasons.
Yes.
From its casting to maybe its writing to just general fanboyism. But when the director of the original IP went and saw it and thought it was fine, I was like, okay, then Hollywood did a decent job. Much like Blade Runner, the world building and the lore of what happened in this universe is pretty cool, and it's cool to see like a dystopian future sort of setting where crime deals with the conscious of the mind, what happens when the body is damaged, and you're a ghost, so essentially you leave your mark in a shell, a cyborg body, as it were.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that we were also lucky to have that perspective of not initially, well, like you'd seen Standalone Complex, but not initially having already seen the original film and having like all of that in our minds. Like you said, we were able to temper our expectations, which I think was awesome because basically what we get to look forward to is essentially an even better form of that story by watching the original film later.
Oh, yeah.
But I could definitely see how it might not be quite as fun for people that have seen the stronger example of the source first and then go in and see this adaptation.
Yeah.
But I also love that you mentioned that the original director of Ghost in the Shell saw the film and approved of it, because I think that's something that we as American like anime fans especially just like it's an element that I don't think we hold with a lot of weight. Like when we're like, oh my God, the casting and everything and the story adaptation is like so offensive, which it is in its own right. But then we're also not counting the voices of the people that have actually worked on the original source and were involved there.
Yeah, for sure.
There is actually a couple of points I wanted to bring up. As one that's actually seen the almost all of the Ghost in the Shell anime now, I still need to watch Arise. I really should have been one that had seen the movie to actually chime in with that. But one thing I do want to say about the casting choice of Scarlett Johansson herself, what it is kind of established that Makoto Kusanagi is Japanese to an extent. They've also kind of left her nationality, or at least her design, the design of her cyber body has always been somewhat ambiguous, because like in the original source, in all the movies, they've actually gone somewhat realistic with the designs of the characters. So, this one is American because he looks American. This one is Japanese because they look Japanese. And then you've got Makoto, who is actually quite anime in her design, and it's like, okay, she doesn't actually look specifically Japanese, but she doesn't look Western either. It is kind of ambiguous with her design, and they have also said there's no reason for her to stick with a Japanese body in design, because she was actually quite young when she became a cyborg, so she's not got any attachment to her previous look as she's older, as she's aged, to really like, no, I want to look like myself. She's just like, well, I've gotten older and I don't know how I've changed, so so she's kind of just taking that mentality with it. So the specific choice of Scarlett Johansson, I get the outrage behind it, but even fitting, if they're claim is, oh, it doesn't fit the law. I was like, check your law first.
Yeah, I definitely get that as well. I see the whole thing just like it's not really a topic that should be shorthanded, but at the
No.
same time, it's beating a dead horse because, like, all the outrage and controversy spilled at the film's release. My general thinking on the topic is that it's a shame more so
Yeah.
than like a humongous offense. The concept of the offense is a big issue because we need more diverse casting in our films.
Yeah.
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
But it's not, like you said, it's an android figure and the original designs are ambiguous. So it's not, I think, it's not like Light Turner, which we'll get into later.
It's interesting in ScarJo's casting as well, because while it's been well established that she can tackle any sort of movie out there, and Avengers kind of put her in the spotlight, right? So it's not to diminish like casting in any like ethnicity, rather, but ScarJo sells. You get her on a poster, people are going to see it, either in the U.S. or outside the U.S. because she was an Avenger. She's Black Widow, for crying out loud. But that's besides the point.
Yeah, I'm with you, though. I think we all kind of have a similar stance on the situation. And, I mean, that's something that I'd like to see in a lot more live-action anime adaptations looking forward. Let's get more diverse casting. That'd be cool.
Yeah, for sure, right?
Who knows about what J.J. Abrams is planning to do with Your Name? That whole situation to me is a little worrisome just because so much of the plot of Your Name is, like, rooted in Japanese culture.
It is.
So I'm not sure what they're going to do with that. And maybe they'll do a whole sort of overhaul where it's very generally based on the original source, like Netflix's Death Note.
That was going to be my theory, whereas Abrams is going to be inspired by this to a point where he's going to uproot this and make it set in the U.S. with... Well, I'm not going to go into the mechanics of Your Name, but like a similar hook. But that being said, I would like him to at least have some ties and some meetings with Shinkai, but my gut says no, he's not.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
I hope so. Like, J.J. Abrams is a very, like, respected director, so, I mean, definitely not the worst choice.
Oh yeah, he's done Star Trek 2009, Into Darkness, he did Star Wars Episode 7, he's gonna direct Star Wars Episode 9, so the guy knows his sci-fi, but...
But how much will that translate over to, as much as Your Name is technically a sci-fi story, how much will that sci-fi experience actually translate into Your Name? Because when you think of Your Name, sci-fi isn't really a genre that jumps to mind as the part of it, even though it is technically part of it.
I guess they could do, like, beautiful special effects work, but I mean, like, what makes Shinkai films, and especially Your Name, such a spectacle is the beautiful animation. So...
I can't wait to own that movie.
Oh, yeah, the Blu-ray?
Oh, yeah. It's gonna be sexy.
Yeah. To quote Gigguk, can Makoto Shinkai just animate real life and just make everything look pretty?
Is that from the Your Name video he just released?
Yeah,
I believe so,
it was.
Okay. I'll link that shiz in the description,
Nice. Cammy, I noticed that you were going to like try and segue into the Death Note, but I kind of derailed it by talking about more. What did you think of Death Note? Netflix's Death Note.
Worries. Death Note movie was a joke to me.
Okay.
Was very laughable.
Okay.
Let's backtrack here. So when I was 16 and just a full-blown like weeb teenager, Death Note was my jam. Like my best friends and I, like in our off time in classes, we were like sending notes to each other and like giggling about Death Note and writing fan fiction and like sharing fan art on our iPads and stuff. I actually own the anime and Blu-ray collection right now, which is stunning, by the way. I can't wait to get that copy back.
Nice.
So I have a lot of attachment to Death Note, and I think that's really why I was just so bothered by the complete overhaul of a lot of the original story. And I say overhaul like they took just a giant dump truck and were like, welp, okay, there goes like 65 no there goes like 85% of the original source. It felt like nothing was really the same except for the possession of an actual Death Note, a teenage boy, and hey, there's a Shinigami.
Yep. Voiced by Willem Dafoe.
I've seen a video comparison of the original meeting with Gigguk and the Netflix meeting with Gigguk, and it's just, these are not the same people.
Yeah, that scene specifically too. That's one of the moments where I was just like, wow, I really appreciate the anime. I mean, props to the Netflix film. I appreciate the anime about like tenfold even more now. I hate Light Yagami's character, but like, wow, compared to Light Turner, I'm like, give me back Light Yagami. He's great. Give me Misa. I guess I'll try not to spoil too much since you haven't seen it yet, John. But
it's so good. I have so many things to say about these characters, but I don't want to make this entire topic a spoiler-free review of Death Note.
It's so hard, and I will also try to overhaul. I guess, though, I think that Death Note, Netflix's Death Note, is an example of when a live-action anime adaptation fails. While it did try to add original things, I think that nothing, even in its original creation, did anything to exceed the original film.
I will say, I will play devil's advocate to this.
Or the original anime. Blah. Sorry.
I'll say, playing devil's advocate, while I do agree that this made me want to go back and say, man, I want to watch all of Death Note original, because its tone, its setting, obviously Seattle, United States, Washington, it's totally different. Casting is a mixed bag, right? Whereas sometimes it's cool, like the casting for L is cool, but then you have moments in the movie where the direction is questionable. The tone of the movie and the way it's shot is very cool. Shoutouts to the director of the Blair Witch Project. Very unfortunate that the outrage of this movie forced him to delete his social media because he was receiving death threats. And I'm like, wow, people, you need to calm the fuck down.
Yeah,
I agree.
Calm your tits.
I agree with that as well. Like, I have so many rants about it, but at the same time, like, be a civil human being.
Yeah.
I will shit talk the film in my own, like, private space, but even when I watched it and was, like, offended by stuff, I just laughed. I just, like, thought of making a drinking game to the movie and, like, how funny it was making some changes, but, like, I mean, just, I don't know, that's one of the dark sides, again, of, like, the rise of fandom culture and stuff like that. And I really hope that won't stop the director from any further ventures into just any film.
I was really looking forward to it. Like, even seeing these negative reviews, it going on the Metacritic, or the Rotten Tomatoes rather, and seeing that it was so low reviewed, I'm like, fuck, man, I'm in. I don't care. It's got Willem Dafoe as Ryuk, and this trailer looks dumb and stupid. And that Friday after work, I popped in, ate some pizza, watched a movie. An hour and 30 minutes later, guys, you're not gonna get the whole entire Death Note story within an hour and 30 minutes. But what they do, even before the director deleted his social media, he said, listen, this is what my interpretation is. If you want the raw, uncut, better version, go watch or read the original source. And I respect him for that.
Kudos to him. Yeah.
For sure.
Actually, that brings up a good turning point because, John, you've seen the Japanese live-action adaptation of Death Note. Would you care to weigh in on that and how it adapted the source material?
Honestly, I feel like it is one of the best adaptations out there that you can get. It stuck really true to the original, to the point that it pretty much is the same as the original, just with a live action cast, and slightly questionable CG when it comes to the Shinigami, but
oh yeah, it's pretty.
You
I've seen
kind of get what
screenshots.
you deal with.
There was also the time that it was made too, because it was not too far after the anime had been out, to my knowledge. I'm gonna look this up over here real quick.
Sorry to go back to this, but like, if at any point that you don't like an adaptation, it is an adaptation. The original source is still there. If you're so upset about the adaptation, go watch the original source and make yourself happy again. Just...
If you're thinking about sending a death threat, remove your hands from the keyboard, go pop in your favorite episode of the original source, and just go watch that instead. Make good choices.
But yeah, it's like the original Japanese Death Note live adaptation, I think, is a beacon of hope that yes, good adaptations can be done. They just take something that everyone else seems to have missed. And what exactly it is, I actually cannot put my finger on. But yeah, it does have its own share of problems, like the CG, because that's going to be, especially at the time, it is still an issue of like, okay, that's blatantly CG, but then how can you make something like a Shinigami look realistic without having a guy hanging off wires for the entire time that he's on screen and just look awkward?
Very true. And I actually searched it, and the original live action film was done in 2006.
Oh,
so,
nice.
It's definitely aged a bit too. So
there is that, yeah.
Yeah, making it more jarring. But I agree with you, and I like that you mentioned that is a good example of that anime adaptations can be faithful and they can be very good. I've seen those movies too. I can't really think of much else to weigh in on, except that in the second film, they did do a plot-altering twist, but I thought it was very well executed, and it actually ended things in a more favorable result for me personally, given who my favorite character was.
If just going quickly back to the Netflix, if they ever do more, which I hope they do, but probably won't. If they continue, the director said he wanted to do more. People are willing. I'm like, I want to see what you do with this universe, because at the end of the Netflix, it leaves it open to more possibilities. And I'm like, yes! Alright, let's see how these crazy kids can get into trouble next!
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That is one thing that I actually kind of want to go and watch the Netflix version, and I do still need to finish both the original Death Note anime and the Japanese live adaptation.
Wait, you never finished Death Note?
What?
No, I never, because I kind of I lost track of it, and then I got spoiled at the ending, and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. So
Patreon paywall tier. Donate $50. John will finish watching Death Note.
No, at that point you should be like, $50. John will review every anime that he says, I need to go back and watch this.
Ooh, I like that. Okay, that's at least $100 tier. Come on now.
It'll be his own separate thing where he talks about it, gives his own 30-minute reviews, and it'll be episodes. Just be like, next up on John said he needs to get back to this FMA Brotherhood. Death Note.
Sean, you have not finished FMA Brotherhood.
Every time I've gone to watch it, it's like, okay, now you can't find any more episodes. Sucks to be you. I know.
Oh my god. Brief mention of that too. Obviously, I haven't seen it, but they're just released, I think, a Japanese live action version of Full Metal Alchemist, which I have seen trailers of, and it looks really cool.
Oh, and Kenshin, live adaptation of Kenshin. I need to see that.
I have all 3 movies. It's good.
So that's another good one.
Oh, I forgot about that. Yes.
I actually completely forgot about the live adaptation of Kenshin until it just popped in my head now. Thinking, okay, what else am I in the middle of watching on Netflix? Oh yeah, Kenshin. Oh yeah, that got a live adaptation.
Albeit a Japanese one, but still.
Yeah, a Japanese live adaptation. Imagine the outrage if Kenshin got a Western adaptation.
Oh Oh, yeah, good old America. I mean, I guess you know what? No, I'm not even gonna get in this topic. I don't know if American samurai films are good or not. Well, it's like, why would you watch an American like samurai film when you could watch a Japanese samurai film? Like, why would you do that?
Nah,
I don't know.
Nah, unless you have like a stylish director like Quentin Tarantino doing it. I mean, Kill
True.
Bill is technically a samurai flick.
True.
Uma Thurman is a badass samurai warrior.
There was also The Last Samurai, in which the last samurai was a white man.
Tom Cruise.
Tom Cruise, yep.
Yeah,
Though that was at least still set in Japan, so...
fair. Yeah. I was just gonna say, while I will play devil's advocate and defend movies for trying to stake or put their own spin on a formula, I will say there are they try, but they fail at it attempts. Shoutouts to Dragon Ball Evolution.
Oh, God.
And M. Night Shyamalan's Last Airbender, because it pains me to say when I saw these, it visibly made me mad when I got out of I rented them. I didn't even go to the theater. I rented them, and when I was done, I was like, God, that was a waste of my money and time.
I guess a quick way that we could just do, just kind of like close out the topic. Maybe we could think about anime series that we think could be good as American live action adaptations, or could really, really fail should they ever come to fruition.
Okay.
I guess like a quick example for me, I think that, and it was going to happen. So Guillermo del Toro, I butchered his name, was going to do a live action television drama version of Monster by Naoki Urasawa.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Incredible. And Guillermo del Toro holding the ropes on a like gritty, real life, just like human murder drama would have been amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that it was going to be on HBO, and then HBO was like, no, we don't want it. And I think it kind of at this point is lost in the void of trying to find someone to adapt it. And I'm just so bummed. And I hope that it happens because I think it would translate very, very well. There's nothing really over the top cinematic wise in Monster that would like have translation issues. So I think that it would work very well, especially with a director that just knows drama and like intensity.
Yeah.
On the opposite side of that, I know that for a while there were rumors about a live action American Akira coming to be released.
Yeah. Oh, those are
in my speculation, and y'all can jump in on this because you've actually seen the film. I've only seen bits and pieces. But I think that the spectacle and like scale of the animation and like what goes on in that film could not be well replicated with special effects. Like no matter what they try, I think it would look really awkward.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yep.
And there's also the whole fact that they said if they were going to do it, they'd be setting it in America, and a lot of the backstory behind Akira is to do with the fact that they got hit with nukes themselves. That is not
right. There's a lot about like the bomb, as with a lot of Japanese media, but there's a lot about like the bomb trauma in it, right?
Yeah, I mean, in fact, the setting of Akira is after another nuke was dropped on them, and they're still recovering from that, and yeah, so there's all of this behind it, and they have that cultural. Is it right to call it a trauma? Like a countrywide trauma of this event?
Yeah.
Do you think it would turn out more like a generic, like Western chaos film, kind of like 2012, or like, just movies with lots of random explosions and stuff like that?
Yeah. If they tried to make a Western adaptation of Akira, I can't see it being anything but a huge letdown, to be honest. I mean, who knows? They might be able to surprise me with it, but I just there's so many reasons why the original that I've just seen the original movie as something untouchable.
Doesn't help that it's been in production hell for God knows how long, but that's besides the point.
I also remember something about George Lucas poking at the Evangelion franchise.
What?
No. That man is retired and he should stay. Well, I don't know if he's retired. Don't call me. But after his great Star Wars prequel trilogy, everyone in Hollywood has deemed that he should not touch movies.
Yeah, okay. I just remember hearing something about that was like even before the Akira adaptation was ever even thought out. So I think that was just like him saying something, and then just everyone was like, just no, sit down, just no.
You were just gonna ask me what would be a good adaptation and a bad adaptation. As you said, a grounded like story such as Monster that doesn't rely on the magical or the mystical. Said like I suppose even if they really wanted to, they could take a Monster and do a Death Note where they could be like, a guy gets pinned for something, even in the United States, right? But take like an IP like Naruto or Sword Art Online. Well, I guess Sword Art Online could work, but you would require a hefty budget for it because any kid could go into Sword Art, but the fans would probably backlash at that. Bad adaptation, I don't know, and it's so hard to say because like I said, Last Airbender bombed, Dragon Ball Evolution bombed. This debatable of Death, like people didn't really like Death Note, but to each their own. So I mean, really, my final saying on this is just go in with an open mind, and if you wanna, don't expect like God to praise the movie because ultimately you're setting yourself up for failure.
This might sound a bit out there, but something that I think could make a neat and fun spectacle of a series that could get a Western live adaptation. High School of the Dead.
Ooh, because we know our zombie movies. Oh, that'd be really cool.
I like it.
Like, I'm sitting here thinking, what could actually make, like, what is, like, the setting of it could very well easily play into an American adaptation, and the only one that's come to mind is, like, that could work if they do go with a whole, it's just ultimately a similar setting, but in, like, a similar story, but in an American setting. Of course, there is a lot of differences with, like, the huge differences between high school in Japan and high school in America, but I do think there are a lot of things that could play very well into an American adaptation of that. One being that Americans do know how to do zombie movies with a lot of high octane action going on. So yeah, I think that would work.
Yeah, there's honestly even just so much influence in High School of the Dead. Like, I think I was watching Mother's Basement do one of his opening analysis videos. I will link his channel in the description. And he mentioned that there are like posters on the back of the wall in some shots of High School of the Dead and like the aesthetic style of the opening that are hinting towards like those American like B-rated zombie films, you know? So
they also make a very blatant nod to the British movie Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead, yes!
That's a good movie.
There's a Shell garage, but the petrol station or gas station or whatever. But instead of being Shell, it's Shaun. And then there's another scene of I believe it was a 7-Eleven, and they've got like this one shot of this zombie shambling towards the door, and then it goes inside the store to show the clerk just standing there, kind of like, and it's blatantly based on the guy from Shaun of the Dead, whose name has just escaped me completely now.
Sean.
Well, no, it's Sean, but like the actual actor.
Nick Frost and Simon Pegg. Simon Pegg.
Yeah, Simon Pegg. It is blatantly Simon Pegg, like an anime Simon and Pegg standing behind the counter, just completely oblivious to everything going on outside, which is exactly his character in Shaun of the Dead at the start of it.
That is amazing. I have not actually watched High School of the Dead. I just know of it, so now I feel like that's something I want to watch it for. Before we end this topic, I have a little question for you gentlemen, and that is Fate Zero, live action, American or British adaptation.
Ooh.
Do you think they could make it work? So here's where I see where it could be beneficial. A lot of the heroic spirits that are summoned are from a Western background.
Okay.
So they could do really cool in getting like the actors that they cast for those heroes and really portraying them just like outright within their culture, which I think could be really, really cool. The show is also very Game of Thrones-esque.
Yep.
So obviously America has kind of proved that we could do like a tournament with lots of people dying and like all that sort of stuff pretty well. Drawbacks or concerns that you guys might have?
There will definitely be the whole casting issue of if they're going to get the heroic spirits from other cultures around the world, they will need to get actors representing those cultures and ethnicities, which is something they can do. I know you can do it, Hollywood. You just don't have the best track record of actually doing it. But as long as they do that, that is the first big question mark of will they commit.
I guess there's the setting of Fuyuki as well. Like, where would they put it if not in Fuyuki, Japan?
Well, on that thought, the setting of Fate Apocrypha is not in Fuyuki.
Isn't it like Transylvania or something? Isn't it where Vlad is from?
Yeah, it is like Transylvania, where Vladimir himself was king. That is the setting of it, and it's because in the history of it during one of the previous Holy Grail Wars, because it is completely alternate universe. During the Second World War, they actually found and captured the original Greater Grail and took it with them and are now activating it themselves for their own grand Holy Grail War.
That's a good point, is that the Grail could even travel, because you could still have the origins of that, like, and let's say maybe we don't do Fate Zero, but there's the origin of the Holy Grail War going on in Fuyuki, but somebody could easily take the Grail and go somewhere else and, like, start a whole new war. Because, again, this can be, like, a loose skeletal adaptation, but I think that the like, things that make the Fate franchise, the heroic spirit, Holy Grail Wars, could maybe translate well into a live-action film.
Yeah.
I would say, honestly, a film is too tight of a time limit for them to expound upon this. I would want to see, like, an HBO series.
A TV series, I could see that.
Like, a Game of Thrones-esque order of, like, 10 episodes per season to tackle on, like, a subject matter or something like that. And don't do no Fate Stay stuff. I just want to see this thing. In my head here, I just want to call it Fate, and I want them to adapt a loose adaptation of Zero, because that is the strongest writing, and if it's HBO, it will have the budget. Who directs it, on the other hand?
Guillermo del Toro again.
Del Toro.
I know that's like, but he'd do it so well. Like, come on now.
Or get the Game of Thrones guys on it.
Or the Game of Thrones guys. But it's just like with Guillermo del Toro too. Like, we know he can do fantasy too with the like gritty reality, a la like Pan's Labyrinth. So I think that he could do that well.
Yep.
And while Ufotable's animation is beautiful, I think that it could still look effective with really good special effects work.
Yeah, the only thing with the Fate franchise is that it is so big and convoluted that trying to squeeze it into a single movie, I think, would just be way too much. The only reason why the Unlimited Blade Works Then again, the original Unlimited Blade Works movie, rather, only worked is because it was also based on the original Dean Stay Night, which did all the explaining, and it was like, yeah, if you haven't seen the original Fate Stay Night, just don't watch this because you're going to be lost. And so it just cut out all the expedition and just was like, yeah, it's just going to be kick-ass and awesome to watch. I do think it is doable. A lot more doable than Akira, but...
That being said, guys, any final thoughts before we transition into our review period? I had a lot of fun with this topic. Thank you guys both for joining me for it.
Nah, I got nothing.
Think of.
Then we will transition into our review section. Again, thank you so much, Craig, for hopping in on this topic.
Yeah,
and
no
you
problem.
are now welcome to set free from the rest of the episode as you please.
I'm free like a bird. Goodbye, everyone. Have a lovely evening.
Okay, now that we got the Discord blink that he is out, we will transition into our second half of the episode today, where we'll be reviewing a show that John passed from the, help me out, John, from the summer season?
Yeah, summer season. And it is Knights and Magic. The synopsis goes... A mecha otaku is reincarnated into another world as Ernesti Echevarria, also known as Eru. In this world, huge humanoid weapons known as Silhouette Knights exist. Dreaming of piloting these robots, Eru and his friends, Arkid Alta and Eltrud Alta, aim to become Knight Runners. This synopsis completely forgot to mention that he retains all of his memories of being a mecha nerd and being a pretty hardcore, really skilled programmer in his life before he died. He uses that knowledge to become actually pretty skillful and quite badass as a mage and as an engineer of these Night Runners, which are all magic based. The studio was Studio 8-Bit, who have also done Infinite Stratos, Rewrite, and Fruits of Grisaya. I really enjoyed Infinite Stratos, but it is also just a harem anime, so I had that in the back of my head of like, they can do pretty cool spectacle fights, but is this going to end up being just another harem anime? And no, it doesn't end up being a harem anime at all.
Yeah.
There is a little bit of a love triangle going on, but it's also kind of really underplayed. Like, Eru has no interest in women in this series.
He's like literally asexual, which is fine, but like at the same time it just kind of made like the whole love, I was like, why are we doing these? Like, we know that there's no shot. And for me, like, the joke was funny at first, but then by the time I was at like episode 9 and 10, I was like, just stop. Just I can't remember the girl's name, but like, just stop. Oh, I was gonna say though, I think that mentality of like, no, I only care about robots, to me basically translates to my overall like impression on the story of this show, which is that it is here primarily to be a show for robot otaku,
Yeah.
for people that are like really, really into that. And it basically unforgivably makes no excuse to develop, in my opinion, the rest of the story or the characters, because it just wants to show you awesome robot fights, and it does. But that, because I'm not super interested in robots, it did leave me a little bit bored for most of the show. But you're a robot fan, right? So, like, what did you think of the story overall?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. Like, when I first passed it, I thought that there was some interesting things going on, that it could become a really interesting story. And then as I continued to watch it, I was like, I'm the only one that's going to really super enjoy this series, because it's, like, playing up to me as a robot fan, and Everyone else is just gonna be bored out of the skull.
I mean, I thought that was cool though. Like, I thought when I would watch the show and they were talking about like the crystal fabric technology and like the inner workings and stuff, and I thought of you being like really invested and like on the edge of your seat, and that made me happy. And I was like, yay, John probably loves this. Because you know what? If this was a like fan service like Fujo bait show just showing boys saying innuendo-y things at each other, I would be the same way and you would be miserable. So, it's really to each their own, and I'm really happy that you could enjoy that aspect of it.
Yeah, I did really love all the scenes where Edo was just nerding out with like, oh, but I've got this idea and this is how I could get it to work, and I was like, yeah.
Yes, that's awesome. I do also agree with you, though, that I do think I actually really enjoyed the first episode of the show. I agree with you that it was doing a lot of cool things that I was hoping would be built on in later episodes. I love the fact that it was I don't love the fact that it was an otaku that went into another world, because hello, how many of those have we had?
Yeah.
But I liked the fact that it wasn't him. He basically got reborn as this whole other person, but that had the robot passion. Like, that was really cool.
Yeah, he was reborn as a child. Like, he's like they didn't show him growing up as a baby, but it's implied that he was literally reborn in this world. He just, for some reason, kept all of his Excuse me. For some reason, kept all of his memories from his previous life, which kind of awoken within him when he first saw this Night Runner for the first time. And he was just like, oh, Daddy, what is that? That isn't Night Runner's son. It's a giant robot!
Yeah, that was really cool. I liked that. I also liked the introduction to the world, and I liked his friends that he meets and develops, and like the twins and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was really excited, but then it just made itself clear that it just wanted to mainly focus on robot battles, and I was like, okay, this is a thing. But props for an original premise initially.
I mean, something I have mentioned is that episode 1 is supposed to be the entire substance of a single volume, one whole volume of a light novel series in one episode, because they want to get him in the giant fucking robot.
And did you investigate if that was the case in future episodes? Because pacing wise, I feel like the show was just I don't know, like a bulldozer.
I do. Part of me does want to go find the original light novels and find out how much got cut, because in later episodes I was like, and that's the time skip, and that's the time skip, and basically they're cutting out all of the slower parts of the light novels, it seems, and just in order to get him to like
every time the narrator lady is just like, and then this happened, and I'm like, huge jump we're doing, huge plot jump, right? You're like, and then exposition, and then exposition, and now here's another robo fight, and then exposition again, and I'm like, thank you, nice narrator lady.
Thank you for filling us in on the details that you're otherwise skipping from the light novels. It just feels like anytime the narrator lady came in, it was like, and here's where we decided that the light novels were too boring, so we're skipping to the actual fight part, and I was like, but I probably would have really enjoyed that chunk of the light novels. But I can, at the same time, I can kind of understand why they did it. They probably felt, hey, we can get the really awesome giant robot fights from this, and people will be really awesome and behind it, but we're not sure if we can sell people on the premise as a whole. So
yeah, I think that's a good way to put it, is that they weren't sure they could fully encapsulate the original source, so they just kind of narrowed in on what would be most effective. And you know what? They could animate pretty robot fights, so that's what they highlighted.
And they did use CG for although that's going on to production.
Did you want to dip into characters maybe for a sec?
Yeah, let's go into characters first before I go into production.
What characters did you enjoy, or who was your favorite?
Overall, I think most of the characters were likable. I did quite like the gag in that he was pretty much asexual, no interest in women, and then he's got these
Yeah.
two girls pretty much fighting over him, even if one of the girls kind of just vanishes and never shows up again.
She does. What the hell was that? I kind of enjoyed her character, and I was like, we're just not going to see her again? Okay. Be replaced by another blonde character in the last, like, third of the series. Thanks.
So thankfully, she doesn't end up getting in on the harem.
Yeah, I actually really... I mean, you know, for things that I liked in that show, that was cute. That little side plot.
I liked the interactions that she and a certain other character had, and I was like, I am rooting for you two so much. Please don't fuck this up.
That was cute, and I liked it a lot. That being said, I guess I do think the two characters that were most enjoyable for me were the twins, his best friends. Though for me, I didn't find any of the characters... Well, I found them all pretty generic.
Yeah.
Ernesti was, like, fun, and he had his gimmick of that he was a robo-otaku kid, which you don't see a lot of. That was really cool. But basically a lot of characters sort of, to me, boiled down to their trope. And then Ernesti's thing is that he's a fucking robot nerd who also was OP, and that bothered me. I was like, he literally just, you know, very Kirito-ish.
Yeah, they kind of played it off as, oh, magic in this world is just like programming in the world I come from, and I was a badass programmer, so I can completely overhaul how magic works and just do things. And because I know of shit from my world, like guns, I can change wands to be a lot more accurate and make a gun-like wand, and I'm gonna completely overhaul how these giant robots work and make them super OP compared to what we had before. And then and it's like, yeah, okay, I get it, but it's just a bit much.
What's another thing character-wise? I don't think they did a very good job fleshing out a permanent villain, and a lot of the, like, characters that were in antagonist roles just felt very, like, one-off and, like...
Yeah.
Just not important. I don't know. I didn't know who, like, half of them were. When they introduce a topic of a war, which I won't go into detail, obviously, I'm like, who are all these people? Like, what, who, okay, so now
Suddenly
we're, like, here.
villain side, which is...
Yeah!
It was like, okay, where the fuck did this war come from? There was no build up to this. It was just suddenly, and now there's war because it's a giant robot series. And what's a giant robot series without war? And it's like, okay, I suppose, but where did this come from? There was like no tension between nations before this. The only indication that anything might have been like a bit more shady in another country was that small group of bandits that could have just easily just been a small group of bandits, nothing to do with the specific other country. But no.
Yeah. And I think the previous episode before they introduced war was like a very friendly episode of like competition between robot builders, and then they become like friends, and it's so like light shonen-y, lighthearted thing, and then war, and I'm
it
just
just
like,
had a sudden
what are we doing?
Tone shift, and it was like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I don't know. So that's pretty much all I have to say on stance of characters, unless there's something else you'd want to bring up.
The only other characters that like stood out was the king and the prince, and their little tiff over who got the golden suit, and the golden Night Runner, and who got the silver one, and like I like the little bit of how the king was effectively teaching the prince mid-fight, and then he threw the fight just so he was like, okay, I'm done, you can have the golden one. It's like it was like, okay, you had every intention of taking the silver one, you just wanted to be a little shit towards your son. Okay. Yeah, I like that, but yeah, then everyone else kind of like, except for like maybe a couple of other characters, everyone ended up being kind of two-dimensional, and like the only remaining person that like ended up being the most antagonistic of the antagonist role characters was the enemy engineer on the enemy side, and that was him because like, okay, our main character is an engineer, is the like person behind all the technology development on our side, so the enemy main antagonist has to be him, and therefore, but even then they kind of just like shoehorned him in, and like, hey, we could come back with another series about him being an antagonist again, but maybe not, and just
I literally don't remember anything about that character except for how many times he would dramatically say "Ernesti Echevalier" like all the time. Like I could take a drinking game in like the last 3 episodes with how many times he said it.
Yeah.
And it was just like so cliche villain, and I was like, wow. That being said, going into production, that's actually one area where I think the show shined pretty well, especially initially. I really like a lot of the main characters' designs. Ernesti's design is really cool. I love his color palette. And I think the show overall is pretty. I think that the CG is CG, so it never quite translates perfectly for me, but I think it looked nice in this show.
At least they did only use it for like scenery, like hard scenery, and for the night runners.
Yeah, it was never for character models, and I think that's oftentimes where CG can be like the worst.
Yeah, yeah, they've used CG for giant robots. Pretty much everyone except for Sunrise use CG for their giant robots now. So that's not really something I can hold against them in that regard. It's like, and even with Sunrise, I think it's only Gundam that they are like, no, we hand drawn the Gundam here, and even then there's a couple of like Gundam the Origin, they were using CG for the Gundams and mobile suits. Like other than that, there's only like a couple of scenes in Unicorn was like, okay, that was CG, and that was CG, but for the rest of it, it was hand drawn or like retraced or something. But yeah, Sunrise are the only ones being like, no, we're gonna hand draw our giant robots. Thank you, we'll stick to this, and everyone's like, doing it in CG is just so much easier, and I'm like, okay, yeah. Props to you. Fair enough. Go ahead. And I've just kind of accepted it now as just part of the norm. So standard practice now. CG for giant robots. Go ahead.
Yeah, I had like honestly no problem with the CG of the robots because like you said, I think it's kind of come to be expected in this sort of show. I think the only time the CG looked a little bit awkward to me were some shots of the beasts in the earlier episodes.
Yeah, some of the beasts were CG.
It's not my main issue though. Actually, I don't really think I have like a huge main issue. I thought the art itself overall was serviceable. I thought the quality dwindled in certain places, but like it's fine. It's not offensive at all. It does its job. And then the thing that was weird to me was a certain choice they made with the opening about at like episode 9 in the show, where they started putting in all these sound effects.
Yes!
What the fuck was that? I was so off put. Like the first time I was like, what? Is this like a broadcast error? What is this?
I hate it when they do that. It's like, no, I want to listen to the music, not all of the twinkly magic sounds and the stomping of these giant robots. That is in
Yes.
the episode itself. Let me hear the pretty music.
That's such a good point. They have enough of that in the show itself, but also I think the audio balancing was just so bad.
Yeah,
Anytime there
like
was a sound effect, it like completely drowned out the song.
they tweaked it a couple of episodes later when they realized, no, this
True.
is a bit too over the top with the sound levels. But even then, it's like, can you just not in the first place?
Yeah, like I don't know why they did that. Another thing, interestingly, in the opening that they changed up later, and I guess it's because like the stakes were higher, but they like took out a chunk of the opening like montage and put in like clips and voiceover from the episode you were about to watch. And
Yeah.
again, though, this isn't like halfway through the series. This is when we have like 4 episodes left. And I'm like,
Yeah,
what are we
you
doing?
just suddenly changed the formula of the intro. Like, why? Uh, I mean, it was one thing. Like, I actually kind of liked it when they did that with da 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 da, but they did that from the start. Like,
Mm,
I mean, episode 2 onwards, because there was nothing to recap 2 in episode 1. But um, and then you just like while you've got all of this like recap going on, like, okay, here's the plot points we're going to be talking about in this episode. We're going to have like an instrumental version of this part of the song before we actually get back
yeah.
to where we left off in the song for the rest of the intro. uh,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, that was something I liked in Da 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 Da, and they did it well, but they were also
Mm-hmm.
doing it from the beginning. Here it's like, we've done it this way and now we're gonna completely change how we're doing it, and it's gonna throw you all off, and why?
Yeah, and I think too, like having the voiceover and clips thing, I think can be effective, but especially then just combined with all the sound effects they added, it was just like, what's the point of having an opening? And you know what?
Mm.
It's a decent opening. The artist who sang it, F. Hana, is the same band that did the cover to Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. Really cool artist, and I was happy to
Oh
see
yeah.
her doing another opening. Um, but yeah, it was just a shame that it got drowned out. But not everybody watches openings. I just really enjoy anime openings, so I've fixated on that.
I mean, yeah, and this was one of the openings, and that until they started like ruining it with all the sound effects, I was I actually enjoyed watching the opening and listening to it and
Hmm.
seeing all the giant robots jump in and like do their thing in the background. Um, the only other thing about the opening that kind of threw me for a little bit was,
Hmm.
I mean, I suppose it was like nodding to events to come, and that was when they had the aforementioned, the previously mentioned second blonde-haired character appear in the
Yeah,
opening.
no, I didn't realize that was her until like the last episode, and I was like, oh, okay. But like, I don't know. It did not translate, and I didn't get it.
Yeah, she was in the opening like from the start, and she doesn't appear until like really towards the end of the series at all.
Yeah.
And like the way that she ended up being a pretty big part of the plot, but just like the intro kind of, like, maybe it's my knowledge of other giant robot anime getting in the way, but like when they show a female character in the opening in that kind of way, they also tend to be like a love interest for the main character, and or have like a bigger like plot significance than what she actually had. And so it was like, okay, so who's this girl? Is there going to be a harem? It was her in the intro that made me really worried that this was going to end up being a harem anime, but it turned out not to be, and I'm
Yeah.
thankful for it. And
I get what you're saying, though. Like, I thought that she was gonna be like an alien for some reason because of like how she's composed in the shot.
yeah, and it's like suddenly space shot. We never go into space.
Yeah, I don't know. I thought she was gonna be like the not human, like the Rudy or something.
Yeah, it's
and
like
I don't know. I was just
you got the
I agree
space
with you. I was
shot
very
with
thrown.
you got the space shot with the giant robot flying through space, and then you've got like this semi-transparent picture of this long blonde-haired girl like over that, and it's just like, okay, who is this woman? Is she a space alien princess or something? No, she's a princess, but no, she's not from space or anything. We never go to space. There is no space in this anime except for in the intro.
A little disappointment there too, but I can't fault the opening for having a misleading image because there's always the flying horses night fight in Utena's opening that, you know, so can't really blame them for that, I guess.
I can't even give them the Code Geass intro kind of benefit of the doubt, where everything in the intro of Code Geass is foreboding and ominous, and like none of it happens. None of it happens. Lelouch never rides a horse. Yeah, just none of the intro of Code Geass actually happens, or is actually any relevance, except for like in very like philosophical ways, or like undertones, but beyond that, and just like, but Knights of Magic is like, okay, that happened, space never happened.
Man, like, this show made me want to rewatch at least the opening of Nadeshko, because I was like, man, I miss space mechs. I want to go like check out Nadeshko again. And Nadeshko, again, credit, was far less generic in my opinion than this anime. So there was that. I got a greater appreciation for another show, and I do like it when shows give me that. I thought the soundtrack was serviceable in this show. And the voice acting was fine. Ernesti's voice actor kind of bothered me because I felt like he couldn't do anything other than shrill screaming about robots, but that's just...
Ernesti just left me thinking, it's Sei from Build Fighters, just in a magical world.
Oh, I get that. I miss Build Fighters too. This show made me think of so many like good robot shows that I really like.
But yeah, art ended up feeling fine. Animation had moments where things maybe were slightly off, but not terrible. I've seen worse. The music and soundtrack did what it needed to. The only bit of production that was like, what are you doing, was the sudden change of having all the mecha and magic and twinkly and explosion sounds in the intro when you didn't need to do that.
Oh, okay. So this is actually really good to get your opinion on because, again, as I'm not really someone that is meant to appreciate these things, did you really like the robot fights? Like, were they kick-ass? Were they, did they deliver for you?
Yeah, I actually really liked the giant robot fights, and thinking back to the 3-on-3 fight that happened, like before Suddenly War, where like I kept on, I was watching it, and there was like one bit where Ernie like charged in, did his thing, and then sat off to a side, and then everyone forgot about him, and I was like, but Edo's still there. Edo's still there. He's not out of the game. He may have seemed like one and done, but no, he's got something up his sleeve, hasn't he? Yep, he's got something up his sleeve. And so I really enjoyed pretty much all of the giant robot fights, and
good.
I also loved it at the start, like in episode 2 or 3, the way he completely hijacked the Night Runner when he and how he the stuff he had this thing do, like the after it was done, like the thing was completely out of commission because he wrecked it because he put it too through. I just loved all that, and also the actual going back to characters. Actually, I just remembered something that I did really like. The character that Night Runner that Eru stole, that hijacked, like he actually had a bit of character development that I really liked, and he kept on, and it was the fact that he did run away, and then like had this kid take over his mech for him and like show him up, and then he was like, you know what, I was pathetic. That was absolutely pathetic of me, and I'm not gonna let that happen to me again. And he kept on like pushing himself and like took on this two-sword fight style in order to like force himself to get stuck in the middle of everything and actually be the person that he initially said he was before he like showed himself up as actually being quite the coward. And now he's actually a pretty badass character by the end of the series, and I actually quite enjoyed him, whereas at first I was like, this is an asshole and he can go do one. I actually came to really like him as a character and was rooting for him during the fights, so
Nice.
yeah.
I will drift over into ratings so you can give yours last, since it was the show you passed. Okay. Again, I kind of just summarized it up in my initial mark on the story. It's that this show really goes out of its way to target a specific audience, and it does really cool things in the beginning to set itself apart from maybe other isekai shows and other mech shows. It's cool that it's in a universe, fantasy universe, where robots are operated on with magic, and there's that extra layer there.
I love the whole magic giant robot twist to it, and I kind of wish they had done a little bit more with that. And they did do some more with it, but I feel like they could have done a bit more. But yeah,
just to follow, exactly. So I mean, just to follow with that, they could have done more. There's not really much here to be found outside of the mech fights and the robot talk, which again is like fine. I just wasn't really the audience for it, and I found myself very like disengaged the entire time. So for me personally, I'm gonna give it a skip it, but I have total respect and stuff for people that really like it, because if you're into the market of robots, it's gonna deliver for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I kind of just echo that. Like, if you're a giant robot fan like me, at least check it out. It is still a really enjoyable a really enjoyable series as a giant robot fan. But there are still times where even I was like, you're teasing with this thing and not quite delivering. You're teasing with this thing and not quite delivering. You've got these magic powered giant robots, and like, yeah, you've got magic wands on the back, but they end up just being cannons and nothing else. And like, you've got this whole magic premise, and you could have done so much more with it, but you didn't. And so check it if you're a giant robot fan. If you're not a giant robot fan, skip it. You're not gonna find anything enjoyable here, to be honest, in the end.
I think that's pretty fair, and I like having your opinion, just because as someone who is an expert in the genre, you know the really, really like strong, the quality stuff.
I am still one of those people that like, I will enjoy something for what it is, and I did still really enjoy this series. It was one of them that I was keeping up with on a week-to-week basis, but even I, as watching it, I was like, this is just dumb. It's dumb fun, but so I can't really like. I personally really liked it, but as a recommendation, just check it out. You might enjoy it in the same way that I did, as just dumb giant robot fun, like with the fights. I am still really interested in actually getting the light novels and seeing maybe there is a bit more to the story than what we've seen. Maybe there's a lot that they cut out, which was super interesting, that I would really enjoy. But yeah, the series as it is, the anime series as an anime series, check it out if you're a giant robot series. If you're a giant robot fan, but if not, yeah, skip it. So.
All right, then that rounds out our review for the episode. And actually, we're right at about time for the entire episode. So I will close us out by saying thank you again for tuning in. This was episode 40 of Annie Chatbox. Thank you, John, for accompanying me in a very fun live action topic and then talking cool robot stuff with me afterwards.
Yep, I had fun with this episode, both the original topic and the anime discussion. I'm just sitting here with a dumb grin on my face because I've just had so much fun today.
I'm so glad. That's awesome. All right, then. Everybody, we hope you also had fun as well, and we will see you in the next episode. Bye-o. Take care.
Bye-bye.